As part of our Dyslexia Me campaign, we are talking to individuals around mental health and dyslexia. We're also trying to understand how mental health has affected themselves in their work life and their personal life as well. We are absolutely delighted to be joined by Chris today. Chris, thank you so much for taking time.
Thank you for having me.
You're most welcome. Taking time out of your busy day to speak with us. We're going to be talking about your kind of journey with regards to mental health. And if you would mind, just tell us a little bit about your experience and your journey.
Yeah, well, I suppose I started feeling the effects of mental health about 8 to 9 years ago.
Okay.
And it started off just low moods, getting agitated quite quickly and sort of really shying away from different things. And I just put it down to general stress, anxiety, just ways of life. It gets busy, it affects you, doesn't it? Yeah. So I'll put it down to that, thought nothing of it. So I carried on with life as normal until it progressively started getting worse, started deteriorating, where I used to just cry for absolutely no reason, uncontrollable crying. I used to stop going out, used to ignore phone calls from friends because I couldn't face going out. It hit the stage where I'm mentally beating myself up, can't cope with the thoughts going through my head. And then just making any excuse not to see any friends or family.
And that was was it kind of like a build-up effect then? Because I guess at the start there was obviously something that was, maybe it was going on, kind of in your work life or something, and this kind of build-up thinking, I've got everything, I'm controlling it or keeping the lid on it, so to speak. And then, as you mentioned, it was almost at kind of like a boiling point where you're then thinking, I almost can't keep this in, I can't control it. Was that kind of the feeling?
That's it, it's like a pressure cooker, and I explain that. Well, in fact, it's like, to me, I see it as a balloon. It started off, right, okay, just low moods, whatever. You get over it, and it did. It went, came back. Every time it came back stronger. So that balloon was getting bigger. And then it hit the stage where it's going to burst, and it's, I need to do something. I don't really get it. I don't want to admit it because that's what we don't do we? Family, like fathers, role models, husbands, men in general, we don't open up to feelings, no, we hide it and we can fight it,
Because there's a certain, I guess, we mentioned before, kind of the ego or the responsibility, I guess, that we have to, fit into, all parents, and kind of, get in your workplace as well. There's a certain status, I guess, that we have to fulfill.
I think that it's just years and years and years of, blokes don't cry, men can't show their feelings. And it's sort of engrossed in you, like as a kid, oh, man up, get up, you're all right. And it sticks with you, not meant to. But I think now there's more awareness. There's still a long, long way to go. But I think it's essential that you talk up, you do cry, you do ask for help, you don't get ashamed, because the hardest part with what I found mental health was hiding behind a happy mask, and inside I was sort of crying for help, and I didn't get what I wanted to do, and the last thing you think of is mental health. Yeah. It just won't affect me.
Absolutely. And Chris, what was the kind of the day-to-day, if you don't mind sharing, the day-to-day kind of life for you, in the sense kind of maybe, taking, when you start, wake up in the morning and then going to work, what was that kind of, did it start the minute you woke up? Were you not getting sleep? It's
a mixture of everything, really. So for me, work was a release. It kept my mind busy. I could take my mind off of that, the constant arguing in my head, constant fighting in my head. So I used to throw myself fully into work, and that's really, but where mine really caught up was at nighttime. When all of a sudden there's nothing else to do, you're just lying there with the thoughts, your own thoughts, then the battle starts in your mind, and then then you can't sleep because you're worrying, then you're over worrying, then you're worrying about not worrying, then it escalates from, what did I say that I look stupid, or why am I feeling like this, I'm weak, you generally just beat yourself up.
So with regards to kind of, and I think there is, I don't know the correct terminology, but there is, scientific proof, and they say that some people, during the winter with the hours that change, it starts getting, in the UK, it starts getting dark at kind of 4 o'clock. We crave the summer. But in the winter, I can speak from personally, that time when it used to get dark, it's sort of 4 o'clock. Those are quite, tough times to kind of get through, because it's 4:00 in the afternoon, it's quite dark. You almost assemble that to kind of nighttime. Were you did the darkness, or was it just the fact that it got to kind of night time that you started feeling a bit anxious because of the next day ahead, or was it?
I think with me, what I've learned, one of the coping mechanisms I have, and I think it's always been there without knowing, is being outside. As soon as you said the summer or a nice sunny day, you naturally feel better.
Yeah.
You can sit in the garden, you're not going to work in the dark, coming back in the dark, then everything, there's nothing to look forward to. I think just being able to go outside and small things like listen to the birds sings or lose yourself looking at a tree, trying to live back in the moment, because that's what I personally struggle with my mental health when it comes, is just not living in the moment and worrying. But being outside allows you just a couple of releases. And
you're absolutely right. It is that kind of centering yourself and trying to live in the moment. And I guess, one of the things that you mentioned was you're always thinking about, you're always worrying at that time, thinking, I'm going to stop myself from going to social situations. What does, my work colleagues, what do they think? What does that think? What was that kind of, what was kind of going on in that kind of, that time, if you don't mind sharing?
No, that's fine. I think you used to look at your phone and think, please don't ring. For me, it was, I can't show weakness. I can't show I'm weak. I've got to be the provider. It's embarrassing, how comes everyone around me is okay and I'm not? So it used to be, right, throw yourself into work, hide behind what I call a happy mask, which to everyone else around me, he's like, oh, he's fine, he's outgoing, he's happy. Inside, it was like, just get me out of this situation. But I keep smiling through it. And it was just very strange trying to even understand. You can't even explain it. You can't even explain how you feel. You don't even understand yourself. So it's very.
So with regards to kind of who you were, who did you kind of have to kind of, as your release, is in kind of, to be able to speak to about these matters? Because again, what you've alluded to, and rightly so, we hear this so many times, that people feel that they can't speak to someone because, because there's, it alludes to kind of, a dent in your ego or judgment or, what people might think of you. And if we take a work environment as well, it could be, does this then stop me from getting a promotion? Or do they think that I need special treatment and all these things? So what was the kind of the outlet for you to be able to, to communicate some of the issues that you were, some of the feelings, that you were feeling? Yeah, no,
I think to be honest, a lot of it was bottling. How I used to try and control it was I used to wait for everyone to go to sleep and just sit downstairs, hysterically crying, out of control crying. But obviously after a while, without you realising, family members, so my wife picked up on what's wrong. Something's not right. You're acting differently. You're agitated, or you're pulling away, all these things I didn't think was obvious, but it obviously is. And it was through my wife kept saying, something's wrong, what's up? And I kept trying to say, I'm tired, it's just things are getting me down. I've got a lot going on. But she physically made me see a doctor in the end. Very highly resistance of, I don't need to see a doctor. I'm fine, I'll go over it.
And what was that stage like? I guess, as you mentioned, wasn't it? The first thing is you need to go and see a doctor.
Yeah.
And I guess it comes down to when admitting that there is something that you need support with.
Yeah.
And I guess you had to go through that kind of stage, first of all.
It's, you overplay it in your head.
Yeah.
You overplay it, I'm failing. If I go and say, I don't need it. And you find any excuse not to see a doctor. When deep down, you do know, you know you need to, because you worry about your career, how people think about you, what's going to happen. I don't want to go on medication, I don't do this, I don't do that. Because again, all this stigma. But I think in the end, you're back to this corner, but I have to. And now it's out in the open, I'm struggling to hold these feelings in.
Yeah.
What
was that kind of initial experience like? First going to the doctors. I guess the night before you're worrying, what they're going to say, what this going to happen, and then you go there. What was that kind of? Was that supportive, or was it?
The first, so I've had a couple of experiences. The first one, I'll be honest, wasn't great. I was up all night. How do I explain it? How exactly do I feel?
Yeah.
How do I put this into words? But it's a case of I was backed in the corner. I said I'll go. My wife is coming with me, so I can't get out of this. Let's just do it, which was good, which was a positive thing. Unfortunately, the first doctor I reached out to see, I didn't get the feedback I was expecting. I was expecting a bit of bit of, right, I understand, right, we find this works. As you would a doctor.
Absolutely, yeah.
The feedback I got was thinking of children from Africa, in a lot worse situation than you are. You haven't really got much to worry about. Just put things into perspective.
So this was, I guess, from an approach of kind of tough love, kind of, like just crack on, kind of.
The man up situation.
The man up, and utilising the fact that, as we, completely understand that there are people, in terrible situations and across the world. But at that point, when you just feel, actually, I just want to be heard, and I've been living this for a long time, and I just need, someone to give me that a little bit more support.
Yeah.
You don't really need that kind of man up.
No, because you're already thinking that. You're already saying that in your own head.
Yeah, because you've been telling yourself that for goodness, however long. You've been saying, I just need to man up. I just need to do this. I just need to
That's
do
it.
that.
They're worse. They're in the worst position. I mean, it's true, there are. But
so you left the doctors then feeling, probably, a bit deflated.
Yeah.
Very, very deflated. And then was there a period of time that you then thought, well, that's it? Or did you think, well, actually, I'm going to seek, some more?
No, I thought that was it, to be honest. I sat there thinking, right, okay, well, it's true. The stigma's true. That maybe I am over-worrying. Maybe, I'm overthinking, why I've opened up. And I was beating myself up mentally for actually seeing a doctor and thinking, well, I am weak then. Even they don't understand. Mate, everyone, you think, oh, am I a loser then? And, what am I doing wrong in life?
Yeah.
And so, there's a long story of, right, okay, let's go back behind the happy mask. I've tried. There's no point in carrying on. Yeah, it's a case of, right, let's improve the way I'm hiding it.
So you almost took that advice because ultimately, when we think of someone, like a doctor who's in a position of that trust element of, we really do, whatever they say kind of goes in that sense, because they have this kind of, we respect them in such a high integrity, integral way. But that conversation that you had, you then went back and then had to live your life again, thinking there was no other way of doing it. What was the kind of, did the then progressively get worse, or what was?
It went through, I tried shaking it off, okay, well, right, I just got to get on with it. That we've tried, I just maybe think differently, take these deep breaths and trying to go on Google for help, and that's then this list of try this and try that. But unless you really understand it, you can't get there. So I went through stages after that of, okay, it got worse at first, but I thought, right, just move on. You can't dwell on this now. Yeah. So I could go through weeks, months, even a year at a time thinking, actually, I feel right. I think I've got control. Then it'll come back, and it came back worse. It's like, whoa, this is getting worse now. What?
Yeah. It's just scary, isn't it? Because all these emotions in there, and you're trying to, function as, in so many roles. We do is, we play a role, as someone who goes to work, as a husband, as a, as a father, as a friend, as a cousin, as an uncle, all these different things, all these roles that we have to play. Yeah. And when you're feeling, like you have to try and keep everything kind of together, it can be a really hard task.
It's a real mess because it drains your energy. You're not sleeping. It drains these constant thoughts and battles with your own thoughts, wears you out. You're pining behind this happy mask, which takes out everything, and you dread the nighttime coming. You wake up and it's just to repeat the same day. Just get through it. Just survive this. It will go. It will pass. You've done this so many times now. Just do it. Just go with the flow.
And then what was the kind of, so the confidence level? Was it a case of being, outgoing, and you mentioned the happy face, and I completely, understand and relate to that, where you have to kind of put on this persona.
Yeah.
But what's the kind of the confidence level inside? What did that?
It's destroyed. It's destroyed. There's still something in you to be able to put the happy mask on. But yeah, you feel empty inside. You feel absolutely lost and empty and confused. And you are, and you feel like that, and you're beating yourself up for that, and if you mess up doing something, no one So if you're at work, you do make a mistake or a homework set, there's no point in shouting something because nobody will be beating themselves up as much as you are. You're already beating yourself up and destroying yourself. What is wrong with you?
Yeah. So Chris, what kind of, you mentioned obviously you went to the doctors, which was the right thing to do. What was then the next stage of help that what point did it think, actually I need to either get a second opinion, or what was that? What did that kind of look like? You don't mind sharing?
So how my journey went from there, as I said, it kept going, it kept coming back, and then suddenly it was coming back, and it was coming back stronger, and this time it was lasting for longer, less time away from it. And it hit the stage where I mentally couldn't cope. It was kind of like physical, like eczema, my asthma. I started getting Crohn's, through repression. So I'm dealing with flare-ups, and suddenly everything's coming at you. You think, right, okay, I need to open up again. So what I decided to do, I approached one of my previous employers. I went to one of my senior management team, and I said, look, I'm really not coping. I need help. I need help. I'm not coping here. Start getting a better way of explaining what was going on, because I've had it for so long. You start trying to self-diagnose and understand. And the feedback I got at the time was, well, you're a mental health first aider. Surely you know what you're doing. So very similar to the doctor's story again, not the thing. And well, I know someone else in the company who's going through a worse situation than you are, and they're fine. So what is going on with you? Down to the point of the advice I got was, why don't you just go for a run and tell your brain to F it, to put it a polite way. Down to, right, we'll keep this between us, so don't speak to any of your colleagues or other managers or HR. Let's sort this out between ourselves.
So, I'm blown away by that, Chris. So because you're a mental health first aider,
yep,
you are then meant to be able to help yourself then out of this situation and these feelings that you're in.
Yeah.
And do you think from because with mental health and wellness, I still think there's some companies out there that are doing incredible things, like real, absolutely phenomenal things, and creating, relaxing spaces within their office. They're mental health first aider, but they're actually, making these things and these changes in there. And there's a huge amount of awareness, and that needs to be done definitely, in the workplace. Do you think that this was kind of a situation where they didn't really know much about it, and they didn't again want to kind of offer that kind of help? Not saying anything from but do you think it was that element of, actually this is too much to deal with, we'll just give you a little bit of kind of wrong advice and tell you to crack off?
Yeah, and I think that's a lot of it. People still feel uncomfortable approaching it, which I understand. But if you don't approach it, then things can't get better. I mean, the thing is, I think employees do want the best for you. They will put awareness courses on. They will support you that way. But nothing can change unless everyone in the organisation believes in it. As I said, we had mental health first aiders. The company were very pro mental health. Just this one individual wasn't, either didn't believe or didn't quite understand it, or whatever the reason wasn't. But that put a block filtering it through. But I think it's one thing doing an awareness course, it's the next thing implementing and understanding, and being a case of, right, okay, let's sit down. You'll never understand everything. I didn't understand it, and other people going through mental ill health won't understand it. But just being able to speak, say, right, let's find the right support for you. And I think that's the way for you. Don't overthink it, just work together.
Absolutely. And I guess it's, an example, we've heard many times before is, okay, you brought this to me. What support do you need? And it's that element. It's almost like, I don't know what support I need. Yeah. I don't know. You're asking me to answer all the questions of the question that I asked you. I'm bringing something to you. You're flipping it back to me and saying, what do you need? I don't know. And I guess that's where we need to get to a stage where there is more awareness around this. There's more conversations being had. Yeah. And if it takes people coming into a workplace and reliving your story, and you sharing your story or something, something needs to change, because to not have the support from that is
yeah, and that's the thing. A big relief is when you open up and you hope it feels onto the right ears. But sometimes, even by opening up to an employee, think, well, it's off the check, it's out in the open. If something happens to my work dips, or something happens, it's in the open. I've done what I can. But I think what really needs to happen is I said, just get rid of the stigma. Let's try and work together. You know, I mean, I don't understand how I'm feeling. I can't explain how I'm feeling. So how can I expect you to? But by going to right, okay, so let's look into it. There's all these different helplines, different companies you can speak to now. Do you want me to get someone else involved? Have you been through this before? What helped? You know, what can we do together? And come up with like just a plan.
Yeah,
you know,
like,
just
like a toolkit or a toolbox or to something to help the individuals that are in there, because you're not the first person ever to bring this conversation to a workplace, and you won't be the last.
No.
And this is where we need to get to a situation where the support is there. So Chris, so at the time within your, so you went to the doctors, and that was kind of a stiff upper lip, man up kind of attitude. Then your employers were kind of again just go for a run, and hopefully your mind will sort itself out, or words to those effects.
I was going to say better words,
words to those effects. What did you feel like after the employer side of it, that it was out in the open, but there wasn't still that element of support?
Part of me was relieved. I've actually said it.
Yeah.
Part of that's at least I've gone to the step where I've opened up.
Amazing. Yeah.
You know, that's the hardest conversation, I think, that admittance, like we said before.
That's a tough thing to do, isn't it?
That's a tough, and although I didn't get the feedback I want, it starts thinking, well, okay, well, I've made that first initial step. You know, there has to be more support out there. And I think admitting it was a bigger relief than I initially thought it was going to be.
Yeah. And then, where did you then go to? So did you then think to yourself, okay, so I've spoken to the workplace. Now I need to then maybe. Did you go back to the doctors? Did you go? What was the kind of the next? Because it feels like you're on this journey of self-care, of trying to understand this, and get the support you needed, and it almost feels like you're continuously trying to speak to someone that gets it and understand. What was the process after that?
My process was same again. Well, I'm going to have to carry on. But by that point, my wife is aware. It's my parents are aware. People around me was aware. So I had a sort of support network of, again, they haven't been through it. They don't fully understand it, but I'm talking, which is brilliant. Continued as normal. Right, let's try and hide a lot of feelings. I don't want to know exactly everything. It's quite scary. So obviously, did carry on getting worse until one day, and this makes it sound like a really horrible individual, but this was my breaking point. I had the children arguing in the opposite room. Something in my brain flipped, ended up punching a hole through the bathroom door, and just dropped and cried. I couldn't stop crying.
First of all, it doesn't make you sound horrible, and secondly, that sounds like just pure exhaustion from everything that you're going through, and you need an outlet of just I guess just someone to listen to you. And again, you've had incredible family support, and goodness knows, if you didn't have that, but that outlet of just someone help, with this. It
was that balloon popping. Yeah. That was it. That was that's my broken point, and at that point I thought I can't get any lower. Unfortunately, carried on spiraling. I knew what I had to do, but by that point, I'm fed up with battling. I haven't got the energy to battle anymore. Still, so I'm not going to get over this. I'm not going to do this. Not going to do it. Carry on falling. And it hit a stage, and I think this is where things started changing for me. I was physically packing a bag. I thought, I've got to get away because I can't let my kids see it. I can't let my wife see it. It's not fair on my parents. It's not fair on people around me. I'm destroying their lives as well. Best thing for me to do, let's go. Let's pack a bag and leave and come back when I'm better. But I think hitting that low was what I think the start of that building. Something inside me, some sort of resilience, what was left. I can't explain it. I don't know what it is again. I can't. It's not fair. I'm bad. Is it? I don't know. It was the kids' faces, seeing them, where's daddy, or what it was. And I think that bit for me was the turning point. And this is where my journey went from all doom and gloom and pressure to the flip side. Right, okay, let's now see another doctor.
Yeah.
And this doctor was...
Thankfully you did.
Yeah, exactly. But that, again, because I had the people around me, that
support network is vital, isn't it?
It's key. And that opening up, I can't just... It's so much harder to live with your feelings in secret and hide behind a happy mask rather than actually open up. When you open up, it's the you feel so light. You know, it might not be the answer you want, but you've made that first step. Okay, I understand there's something wrong now. And let's seek help, you know, and it's important to do so, even the helpline, wherever it is. And when I saw this doctor, everything made sense. Right, you got anxiety and depression. You know, this is, right, next step now, here's medication. And before, with the stigma, I can't take medication, I'm addicted, I can't do this, can't do that. But I think I hit that absolute rock bottom. I was like, I'll take anything to get. And I tell you, taking medication was the best thing I could have done, because it starts lifting you up to a level playing field where you can start fighting for yourself. So if you're in a similar position, then yeah, please listen to a professional. And I honestly, my thoughts are complete opposite. You know, it's like if you've got a headache, you take a tablet, don't you? If you're battling mental health and you're rock bottom, then do what you need to do and stay open-minded.
Absolutely, and your story's remarkable, Chris. And you touched on as well that what was my resilience, and your resilience is the fact that you are, you know, you're incredibly strong, and sometimes you're stronger than you give yourself credit for.
Yeah.
And that journey that you're going on, I'm sure, you know, people watching this can relate to that, and maybe they're at different stages in their journey, you know, within this. What would you, if you had to kind of give some, I guess, you know, I'd probably say advice, but give some, you know, your thoughts on what that experience is. And we know, you know, that it's a continuation. We're always kind of working on ourselves and have to be, you know, kind to ourselves. What does it kind of look like now for you? For
me, I think the key word I think is never give up. We see a doctor and it's not the thoughts you want, see another doctor. You know, I went through counselling. Counselling changed my mindset and allowed me to challenge my thoughts, you know, write down, start being nice and write down good things, what happened, or, you know, challenge the negative thoughts, you know, think about a different way, which is hard, and it is very hard, but to keep going. Even if you see someone to support you there, if that doesn't work out, look for something else, but open up, talk, seek the help. And it's surprising when you do open up, when you speak to people saying, I went through that, the amount of people you'd least expect have been on a similar journey have been through that journey.
Absolutely.
And in a way, you learn from other people's stories, but just don't give up and keep getting the support you need, or call helplines, but don't rely on the crisis lines, you know, try and get in before. If it's early and it's not right, you know, get the help, or reach out. It's honestly, and it's not as bad as you initially planned.
Chris, I cannot thank you enough for sharing your remarkable story with us, and again, you know, opening up, you know, your experiences, and again, this story, you know, will continue to serve people and help people along the way.
I really hope so. No, and yeah, it's really good coping mechanisms and a positive outlook. You get there, you will get there, I promise.
Absolutely. Thank you so much for joining us today, Chris, and I wish you the very best in the rest of your endeavours.
Thank you very much. Thanks for your time.
If you've been affected by any of this conversation that we've had, then please do check out our website, where there are links to further organisations that can continue to help and serve you. Thank you so much for watching our Dyslexia Me conversations, and please stay tuned for further conversations. Take care, guys. Cheers. Bye-bye.
That brings us to the end of this interview. Throughout the month of May, we've had the awesome opportunity to speak to some incredible people with a focus on the relationship between mental health and dyslexia. Please feel free to click this link here and learn more about Margaret Rook, as she talks about her own experience as an author and some of the things that she's learned in conjunction with mental health and dyslexia. If you have any comments or questions, leave them in the comments below. And as always, thank you so much for watching.